Hello, and welcome to If My Feet Could Talk, the podcast where I talk about mostly running, as well as other subjects like mental health and family, etc. Now, a little catch up with me. I'm still going strong, running every day. As of today, it's 480 days in a row. No dramas, touch wood. I was due to race the weekend just gone. However, work got in the way, and it was my first did not start, so a DNS for me. But work, unfortunately, takes precedence with me because it's the nature of my job, sadly. Fat Jack in October has been cancelled due to National Trust not giving permissions yet for events, etc. So that's been cancelled. So currently, I've got no races until next year when I do the Arc of Attrition 100 miler. But we shall see. I may be able to fit in a few races, smaller ones, local, hopefully, in that time. Now, let's move on to our next guest. This fabulous Welsh lady came onto my radar this year when we were both ambassadors for the beautiful Brutal events. She's run some adventures, that's for sure, including the most recent world record length of New Zealand. I give you Menna Evans. And we're recording. Hello, Menna. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you very much. How's the family? How's life in general?
As crazy as always. Obviously, first week back for the kids now back at school, so trying to get back into some sort of routine again. So it's a new sort of normal, as everybody's calling it. So no, it's good. It's I like routine because I know where I stand with training and housework and jobs and all the other stuff. So yeah, looking forward to getting back to some sort of regime.
And have you been able to train much during the lockdown and stuff like that?
Got off to a slow start. Just obviously trying to get used to the whole, the limited amount of exercise that we were allowed to have and where I was able to go. But the last couple of months, having been able to go outside and go further afield, so I've been running up a lot of mountains and just getting out and really enjoying the trails. So it's started to pick up again now. So
Yeah, because you living in Wales, you obviously restricted to the 5 minute jobby or whatever it was, 5 miles or whatever it was, wasn't it?
Yeah. So basically, it was like a hamster's wheel every day, and I was going out of my mind with boredom, as I imagine most people were. But yeah, now that we're able to get in our cars and actually get somewhere, things they're looking up again. So yes,
Unless
looking
unless
forward
you
to.
unless you live in Caerphilly, obviously.
Yes. Oh.
It's strange. I was only there a few weekends ago, so we dodged that one.
Yeah. Cross it doesn't happen to us like and elsewhere, and I hope Caerphilly obviously get out of it as soon as possible.
Yeah,
But yeah.
it's a crazy time. So, can you give a little intro about yourself, who you are, where you're from, what you do for a job, all that sort of background information on yourself, so our listeners and viewers can get to know you a little bit.
Okay, well, my name's Menna Evans and I live in Llansadden, which is Carmarthenshire. I'm a self-employed dog groomer. That's my day job. And I like to do a little bit of running as well. I guess it's easy just to sum it up that recently, back in last January, February, I ran the full length of New Zealand and gained a Guinness World Record for fastest female to do so. So that's my biggest achievement to date. Prior to that, I ran Joggle in the summer of 2018. And I'd only really started long distance running a sort of 6 months before that. So my running career isn't huge, isn't extensive, but yeah, hopefully, I'm looking forward to lots of other things in the future. I'm 41. I have a son who is 6 and living with my partner who has 2 boys. I should name them. Harry and Noah and Llewellyn, who's my little boy. And I've got 7 dogs, 2 chickens, a pony in the field, and that's me in a nutshell.
Excellent. So, where were you born? Where did you grow up?
I was born in Pontypridd,
Oh, lovely.
but grew up in on the outskirts of Cardiff in Rada up to the age of 19, and then that's when I started moving about. I lived in London, I've lived in New Zealand, I've done quite a bit of travelling, but the last 7 years I can finally say I've settled here in Llansadden and I love it.
Excellent. I know Ponty pretty well, having lived in Cardiff and got friends still up that way. Um, what were you like growing up as a child when you were in school? Were you sporty? Did you do much running back then?
I absolutely hated running. I was the slow one cross country, and I absolutely loathed it. I remember my PE teacher praising me for my good arms. I used to run out of a fashion. I mean, that's not good running, as anybody knows. And hated it, but I was outdoorsy. I was hugely into horses. I was at the stables as and whenever I could. And so I was fortunate enough to grow up with horses, and then had a sort of a career with them up until to my middle 20s. But yes, yeah, I was the horses was a big thing for me, and so I was, I had big mega calves and a big back and strong arms, and that was me in school. But I pretty much just was quite an introvert, still am. I keep myself to myself, and but yeah, I love the outdoors.
So,
So
did sport sort of go through your family down the line, down the generations?
so Dad was a keen walker. He walked around Wales quite a few times actually with groups of youths, and I wasn't really aware of him doing so at the time, because it was aged between 5 and 10 when he did so. So I didn't really, yeah, like I said, wasn't really aware of his achievements until sort of later on in life, really. So he also did, back in the 60s, he walked from Brighton, London to Brighton. And so all these things actually, much later on, I sort of made my challenges as well. And so he's inspired me in many ways. Unfortunately, he's passed away now, and all these sort of recent things that I've done, he wouldn't sadly be aware of, but I'm sure he's looking over me somewhere, and telling me that he's proud. But yeah, but
Oh,
he
I think he's definitely aware of. I think he's definitely aware of it. I think everyone that we sadly lose still remain with us in some form, looking after us as we do these things. So I think he's definitely aware of it. But when did you first find the love for running? You said you weren't a runner, but when did you start going, do you know what, I'm going to lace up my trainers and go for a run?
So I would say maybe 10 years ago when I was working with the horses, I don't know why. I thought, you know, I'm gonna have a go at running. But hit the tarmac and did a marathon, and then things in life changed, and I moved, and then I just forgot about running. And then 10 years later, like I mentioned, my dad sadly passed away in 2017, and before he died, he asked me if I wanted to walk John O'Groats to Land's End with him, and I didn't even know this was a thing. And you know, so he asked me if I wanted to do it, and I said yes, absolutely. But unfortunately, his health decreased over the months following, and then we never got the chance to do so. So when he died, I decided that I was going to do it in his memory. And but obviously walking was going to take too long, so I decided to run it. And that's when it's sort of the ultra running came about, really. So you know, sort of just over a year after he died, I did ran joggle John O'Groats to Land's End.
So when you first laced up those shoes many years ago, and gone for your first run, what was those first steps like for you?
Um, 10 years ago when I first started, yeah, I think it was something that I felt, you know, when I went out for a run, I felt like a sense of freedom, and I certainly got hooked quite quickly. Um, and then, you know, the sort of the getting fit, and then feeling like, you know, you could run for miles and not tire, and I really enjoyed that. But like I say, you know, I moved then, and then I just stopped, and then I had my son, etc., etc. Until obviously, well, 2-3 years ago, I put them on again, and felt that sort of infinity with it again. So yeah, and I think also it's helped me a lot with mental health issues as well. So sadly, like, over the last few years, with my dad passing away, I have suffered with anxiety and depression, but running just helps balance me. So yeah, it's hugely important to me now for many reasons.
And you mentioned a moment ago, during your first sort of part of your running career, before you had a pause, you ran a marathon. Which marathon was it? How did that go?
Um, so 10 years ago, I did the London Marathon, um, and loved it. Yeah, it was great. It was great. So, but it was all about the sort of the road running then. I didn't really know that knew about trails and that sort of thing. So yeah, it was a London Marathon.
So basically, the same 2010, same marathon that was first for me, all those years ago.
Right.
How did you find the marathon? Did you enjoy it?
I did. The crowds were phenomenal. They carry you all the way from the start to the finish, and certainly the buzz of the crowds being amongst all the other runners and being in London itself. It was yeah, it was a phenomenal first marathon to do. And yeah, I really enjoyed it, and that's just got me hooked from there on.
Excellent. Um, so obviously you mentioned you got into ultra running, you found trails and stuff like that. What was it the death of your father that led you to that, or were you already looking at going further than a marathon anyway?
I hadn't really thought much about running before my dad passed away. I because I was a single mum, so I was pretty much stuck in the house really with very limited childcare. So, but when Dad got ill, my mum and Dad moved into my house with me. So, I arranged with Mum that we looked after my dad together and my son together. So it allowed me a little bit more freedom to actually get outside and start running again. Um, I guess the trails then, when I ran John O'Groats to Land's End, I tried to incorporate a lot of the trails just to break it up. And then, just having experienced how much fun and the sense of freedom and the landscapes and everything that went with it during Joggle, that was even more amazing. And so I try to do it as much as I can now.
So leading up to obviously the Joggle, what sort of training and events did you do to sort of prepare you for what may lay ahead?
So on the lead up to Joggle, I did my first ultra race, which was the Gower. That was 34 miles. Following shortly after that, I did the London to Brighton. I think I mentioned it earlier that Dad walked it, so I wanted to do that ultra race in memory of Dad as well. And that was, you had an option to do it all in one go as 100k, or do it back to back. And so I wanted to sort of copy that, that wake up the next day having just run to do another 50k, because obviously that's what Joggle was all about. So that was perfect, really, really good training for that as well. And then it was tricky, really. I mean, I just did as much as I could with the time that I had, because obviously being self-employed and a single mum, it's all a bit of a juggle. So although it wasn't perfect and exactly how I imagined, or I would have perhaps liked it to have been, it was what it was, and I just got on with it, really. And I think a lot of ultra running anyway is I mean, once my sort of body was I did as much as I could for my body, and then the rest, then it was up to my brain to get me around.
Because as you said, you have to fit it around obviously your family and work and stuff. Like most of us, we're not paid professional athletes, so we have to work and we have family to support, stuff like that. It's difficult, isn't it, to juggle training and races to prepare you for adventures?
Yeah, it's tricky. But I mean, it's good. I think, my son he's grown up with me now, having done this the last few years. And so I think it's hopefully it will inspire him, to always sort of work hard and aim for your goals, no matter how tricky and difficult it can be. And then what you can achieve when you put your mind to it, so I'm hoping that's what he'll learn from it as well. So because he's actually been, I've been lucky enough to have him with me throughout. He's with me when I did Joggle, and then when I did New Zealand as well. So and that was hugely important, because just like my dad inspired me to do these, I hope then that I can inspire my son as well.
Yeah, and I fully understand that, because I'm pretty much the same with my soon-to-be 10-year-old. He's been brought up around running all his life, so I fully understand that. So we move on to the Joggle then. Obviously, we know why. You've already mentioned it. It was in memory of your father. You obviously said Joggle, so you started at John O'Groats and went downhill instead of uphill, which is good to see. A lot of people tend to go uphill. I don't know why.
It's
How long did it take you?
So Joggle took me 41 days. So I ran typically 6 days every week. And then that one day was always sort of involved having to pick up people, swapping around drivers, swapping around support members, family. And it took me, so I did 37 ultras in 41 days. And that was a distance of 1,050 miles.
So you did the long route really as well. You didn't take the short route.
No, yeah, I mentioned earlier that I tried to incorporate some of the trails. So I did West Highland Way, Offa's and the Cornish coastal paths, as well as,
Oh, nice.
as other little ones that I sort of stumbled across along the way, because they were my head breaks, if you like, because running on the roads was just so monotonous and so battering on the body. So you must be muscle groups, and not having that change, and it just being really boring, actually, if I'm going to be honest, and
And,
dangerous on the
and,
road.
and there's nothing quite like making it a little bit tougher by doing the Cornish coastal pass as well thrown in there.
You know, I got to the end. It was the last week to go, and I hit the Cornish coastal paths, and I was on such a high and loving every minute of it. And I just thought, I don't want this to end. And then I got to the Cornish coastal paths. Oh, it was brutal. It's just so up and down, up and down. It's very little running, a lot of climbing, and my knees and my hips hated me after a few.
How was the weather for you? How was the weather for you at that part as well?
It was pretty good,
So
actually.
you had some good views. You had some good views, which
Yes, stunning. I would say Scotland was probably the wettest part of that.
that's always wet.
Yeah.
But when you hit the coastal pass in good weather, it's phenomenal views down there. It's one of my training grounds, so I know it pretty well.
Oh right, yeah.
So,
Yeah,
so you took 41 days, and you averaged basically an ultra a day. What were the first few days like compared to the last few?
the first few days of joggle, well, it was a complete unknown. So it was, every morning waking up thinking, oh gosh, I hope I can finish today, basically, and then just trying to get into some sort of routine, and hoping, like I said, that my body adapted. Whereas the last few days then of joggle was emotional, because the whole time, I was doing it for Dad, so I felt like I'd gone through the whole grieving process. So it was, and dare I say it, even though I hate the term, it was a journey in so many ways. The last few days, just I had the most amazing time. So I kind of didn't want it to end, but my body was ready.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just people don't realize until you've done something like this. It's not just an adventure for your feet; it's an adventure for your mind as well, isn't it?
Yes.
The roller coaster of emotions that you suffer along the way, highs. You can't explain it. You have to experience it, don't you?
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. But it's what I learned very quickly was it's about positivity, and just keeping that balance, and I just try to see the humor in a lot of things, so just to keep me laughing, because I mean, it's such a lonely road for most of it, although I did have a few people pop up here and there to say hello, but so just look for like road signs, or I don't know, anything that would just make me giggle, and then just do daft videos, anything just to sort of make me smile, even though it might not have been funny for anyone else. But just kept it all positive, really, because I think a little negative thought can just go absolutely Pete Tong, and then down and spiral downhill, if you start thinking about things and feeling sorry for yourself. So it's about the approach.
Brilliant. And obviously, we've had recently a few the jog runs, being the fastest female recently. Record recently been taken, as well as Dan Lawson smashing sub 10 days. Have you been following any of their journeys during this time?
To be honest, I think since lockdown, I've been trying not to go onto social media too much. I talk about sort of keeping things positive. I just think that certainly Facebook, it can just get you just get too bogged down with theories and that sort of thing, with surrounded by coronavirus. But certainly, there's been some amazing ultra runners achieving some incredible things in the last few months, hasn't there? I mean, sort of between the Bob Graham rounds and the Paddy Buckleys and like you say, joggle, it's just phenomenal, and it's really exciting.
It has definitely opened up fastest known times to a lot of people, as in knowing about them, where before you may have one person will attempt it, like, and be it for the whole year. But because races have been cancelled, it's given people a thing to do. And you're right, we've had lots of them. Our adopted American John Kelly smashing in the grand round very recently as well, not long after his Pennine Way record smashing run. It's been unbelievable. How long did it take you to recover from the joggle?
Um, Actually, not that long, between a few sort of sports massages and taking a few weeks just sort of chilling out a bit, and actually spending time with family was priority, having been away from home for so long. Yeah, I was back up and running, although fairly quickly, although I did get I did a really long drive. It's just ridiculous, but I got a back injury, which then slowed me up for a couple of months. Whether that might have been tied in with joggle, I don't know. I got it from driving long distance, and so then was forced sort of to recover and take things easy for a couple of months. But then I had my sights set on New Zealand, which is what I'd decided the last week of joggle, clearly having too much
Too
uh,
much time on your hands as well.
yeah, I just thought, yeah, what can I do next? What can I do next? This is amazing. And so I thought of New Zealand, and then so it was the training. So like I say, I chilled out for a couple of months, and then just kept going then towards New Zealand, because little did I know at the time, but joggle was a perfect warm up for New Zealand.
Yeah, definitely. And as you've said, you ran this in memory of your late father. Let's talk about your late father for a bit, and what effect this had on you. Because you've already mentioned you suffered from some forms of mental health, but how did the joggle help you cope with the loss of your father, and obviously with the mental health issues you suffer?
Um, yeah, I think just feeling like Dad was with me throughout joggle. The most important bit of joggle for me was doing Offa's Dyke, because he'd walked that, and it was one of his favourite trails to walk around Wales. So when I hit that point and spent that, I think it was about a week, doing that, that was really moving, and that's when I felt at sort of at my closest with Dad, you know. But it just allowed me to sort of just focus on the grieving process, and not just the lows, the highs as well, you know, thinking of good times with Dad. And then by the time I came to the end of that, I just felt like I'd gone, you know, through that, all through the emotions, and that I felt like I'd sort of dealt with it, and I was ready to sort of move on. Although, you know, I still think of him fondly now. I feel a lot stronger from it, you know. So yeah, yes, I
So
don't know. Did that?
there's a saying that grieving ends, but love never dies. Do you feel
Yeah,
that's what you've hit now? You've gone past that grieving period, and now
yes,
you're into that never-ending love for your father and
yeah,
obviously anyone else.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Although I always feel, you know, when I'm up on the mountains running, especially in Wales, that that's when I feel sort of my closest to him, and yeah, I just don't get upset about it now. You know, I sort of remember him with fondness and love, like you say, as opposed to getting upset. So yeah, no, it definitely helped.
Do you talk to him on your own?
Um, No, not so much. Not so much. Just feeling the closeness, really. I guess I do sort of just reliving precious memories of, you know, when we were together. Um,
Yeah, the reason why I asked that is because I talk to my best mate who I lost through cancer quite often when I run, because he's on my shoulder,
yeah,
and he gets me through the events that I run, and I know for a fact he'll either be laughing or telling me off or something. So I talk to him, so that's why I asked if you talk to your dad or not while you're running. Um, but you mentioned obviously you've got anxieties and depression and stuff like that. Do you feel that running helps a lot, or just part of your coping mechanism for the other issues?
absolutely, for sure. It's I'd like to say like that depression, I haven't actually had depression for quite some time, although anxiety is still often there. But running helps me in so many ways. It just keeps, whether it's, I'm not very good at sitting still, right? So I can't meditate because I can't switch my brain off. And yoga, although I love it because it helps balance my running, with the stretching and everything, it's not something that I can sort of engage with. But running, being outside in nature, and the sort of with the footfalls I find really sort of rhythmical, and breathing in the fresh air, and being inspired and enjoying the views, and just all of that put together, absolutely helps without a doubt. I know if I haven't been out for a run for a few days, because I just start not necessarily slipping, but just feeling perhaps a little bit more anxious than I usually would. Or, if I have a stressful day, then I just know I just chuck some shoes on and away to go. I come back feeling so much better. That it definitely, it fixes me in so many ways. Like I've said before, and also, the challenges it presents, so it keeps me focused, with determination and motivation. And all the people I've met, running has given me so much, so yeah, it's not anything I'm going to be giving up anytime soon.
Excellent. I think it was Dan Lawson recently talking during a short clip of the film he made for his jogging, and he said ultra running is basically our way of self-harming.
Right.
To some degree, I can understand why, because obviously we go through such a pain.
Yeah.
All the pain barriers while running, we're purposely doing it to ourselves to get the highs,
Yeah.
to get the relief.
Yeah.
So, do you think it's right in some way there?
I think a certain amount of it is to, like, when you're ultra running, it's like it's all you can focus on sometimes, so when you've had a really stressful day, suddenly my head gets so full of what I call white noise, and I can't see the wood for the trees. When I go out running, especially long distance running, it's all you think about, it's all you can think about, and I just feel everything else disappear. And actually that then is a form of release, isn't it? So you don't feel the pressures from that necessarily, but the running sort of takes over, and then it presents a challenge, which I really enjoy physically, and so challenging myself in that way, I can deal with a lot better. So,
fair enough. Right, so let's talk about your world record attempt now of being the fastest female to run the length of New Zealand. First of all, let's go over again where you got this idea of running the entire length of New Zealand from.
Okay, so the last week of Joggle I mentioned before, I decided that I was having too much fun and I didn't want it to end. So I thought, well, I need something else to aim for. And I thought, I'd 15 years prior, I'd been to New Zealand, loved the country. And I thought, I put two and two together, and I just thought, why not? Let's just go and give it a go and run the full length of New Zealand. So I did. I kept working.
What sort of training did you do in preparation for this? Did you learn obviously a lot from your joggle experience?
Yeah, so joggle was a perfect warm-up, and training for it.
I love how you say running joggle was just a warm-up.
But it did, it prepared me mentally and physically for the bigger challenge. And New Zealand certainly was that, because there was no pressure through joggle. It was all about the personal challenge, whereas New Zealand was always about the world record, going for the world record as well. So I went in a little bit more serious into that, with all the experience I gained from joggle. So yeah, when I finished joggle, it just basically, I just carried on training all the way through, spending time trying to sort of get organized for it, because obviously being on the other side of the world, it's pretty difficult to
Yeah.
things up and get sorted, you know, with a team of people. But yeah, I got there eventually, and yeah, and the 1st of January, that's when I started.
So the current record was set at 52 days and 12 hours. What was your goal at this point? Before you started, what was your goal?
Um, well, I was fairly confident that I was going to beat the 52 days. I'd given myself 5 weeks because I'd booked the plane tickets home, so it was a kind of
Motivation, yeah.
get on with it. And I'd already, you know, my mum and my son came out with me for the first half, so in my head they were always going to do the North Island, and that was sort of a bit of a holiday for them as well. So you know, I had to sort of get that done at a certain time, in a certain time as well. So yeah, I mean, once I did the North Island and mum and my son had gone home, that was it. There it was. I pulled my socks up and cranked up the mileage, and then basically and got done as soon as I could, so I could try and, you know, smash the record.
And how were you feeling standing on that start line at the top of the North Island? How were you at that point? Were you feeling confident? Were you feeling obviously apprehensive? What sort of feelings were you going through?
It was really quite strange because it wasn't the whole time leading up to New Zealand. I'd been talking about it so much that it not really dawned on me what I was doing. Actually, until the day before when we drove up towards Cape Brenga, which is with the start line, and we're driving on the roads actually, and looking, you know, how busy they were and how very small the hard shoulder was, and thinking, oh my God, you know, I'm going to be running on this road. And then it was just like a flash of lights, like, oh my goodness. However, the start line at the very top is very quiet, in sort of in very sort of, well, on the coast obviously. So I was able to sort of have a few days grace before hitting the busier roads. But when I started, I felt there was, and I don't want this to sound arrogant, but I did feel confident. I think just with joggle under my belt, I felt quietly confident that I was going to do it, because I was just so determined. And at any point in my mind was I not going to finish. And yeah, it was pretty much my attitude every morning when I woke up. It was just get up and do it, you know. Even when I was in pain with niggles and injuries, it never entered my head that I wasn't going to finish.
Because it wasn't just a world record you were doing. You were doing it for charity as well. You were raising money along the way. Is that right?
Yes, yeah. So back home, then I raised money for Mind, and then in New Zealand it was for Save the Brave, and raised just over £5,000 for the charities.
Oh,
So that was, yeah, that was pretty nice to be able to do that as well.
as the event went on, did you have any hiccups along the way? Did you have any issues that you had to deal with?
Yeah, you know, it became less about the running and more about the daily challenges that were presented to us, like, every day. You know, the roads, they were incredibly busy. A lot of lorries, or trucks as they call them. I had all the bridges. They weren't pedestrian friendly at all, so it was a constant sort of having to try and cross the bridges as safely as I could. There was a certain amount of the weather, whether it could be extremely hot one day, extremely windy the next, and then torrential rain, you know, the day after. So I experienced 3 seasons in in those, you know, 35 days. And yeah, road closures, all sorts. It was just every morning, it was just like, crikey, you know, what's ahead of us today? And you just didn't know until you got going, really. So yeah, it wasn't really just about the running. It was more about the elements and what was presented in front of you that became the hardest part.
Um, what was that? What was a highlight for you, apart from finishing? Obviously, it's always going to be a highlight. What was a highlight from the journey?
Oh gosh.
Probably had a few.
Yeah, there were quite a few. I think just having mum and my son there made it really, really special. And people just make the challenge. They're what they're the precious memories of it all. And so many people would amazingly just like spring up from nowhere. They'd be following me on the tracker, and I'd be greeted with people sort of throughout my day, which was so phenomenal. And I can't say enough. The New Zealanders have just opened up their arms to me and gave me huge amounts of support, which was really, really lovely. So that definitely made it for me. As well as obviously the scenery in the South Islands, just stunning, absolutely stunning. So I was really, really fortunate. It was time of my life, I would say.
And what was
Really.
the worst part? Always going to be a low point during one of these things.
Yeah, it was the second or maybe third, but last day, and the rain was absolutely torrential. I've never experienced anything like it. It was literally like somebody was just pouring buckets of water over my head, and when trucks passed, the force of the water would whip my cap and my hood off, and it was just like water torture. You could barely breathe in it. It was just so much, and I just thought, my God, I've got 7 or 8 hours in this, and it was just. I mean, it was fairly flat roads, so it was easy running, but the rain was just grueling, and that I definitely was feeling I was being tested then. That was hard. That was really hard.
So
Not even.
how did you cope with the mental and physical challenges that this event threw at you? As you say, the rain and stuff. How did you cope with that? What did you do to deal?
Um, I just think, I don't know whether it's stubbornness or determination or bit of both, but there was just no chance, and put so much work into it, and um, there was no chance I wasn't going to finish each day. Um, because I was there to do a job, and and people, with the support and raising lots of money, I just, I had to get done. So it was just a case of just trying to switch off. For one thing, I just, like I was saying before, about positivity. So I wouldn't ever allow any sort of emotions. Like, so I try not to think about things that might upset me, like thinking about dad, like, and I sadly lost my brother and my uncle and my cousin as well, like the last 2 years. Really difficult time for the whole family. So I couldn't allow any of those emotions seep in, because it was all about just, one step, one foot in front of the other, and just keep driving forward.
That must have been the hardest part, to keep those, especially with the amount of loss that you had over the last couple of years. It must have been really difficult to keep that buried while you focused on the job at hand.
Yeah, I think just with the challenges ahead, you're always having to stay focused. Even the traffic, just keeping your wits about you. So it was always about what was ahead of you, not what's going on in the sort of background. I don't think there was really much opportunity to sort of drift into sort of those reaching into emotions and that sort of thing, until the last day, when I thought, you know what, I'm gonna go there, because I know I'm gonna finish today now, and I did. I cried with happy tears, sad tears, and I spoke about mind, why I was doing the challenge, because I hadn't up until that point. And Actually, Lad Bible did a really nice video, and put all the clips together, and so that's really nice to look back on. But yeah, it's just being a bit like a bit of a robot, really, I suppose. You just do what you've got to do, and stay focused.
Now, I remember you finishing, because I followed you all your journey from day one to the finish. Um, you broke the world record. What was the official time that you set?
So it was, I've got it written down. That's terrible, isn't it? It felt like such a long time ago now. 30, 35 days and 12 minutes, I believe. Is it 12 minutes?
35 days and 12 minutes.
You know what's really infuriating, because I set myself a time, and I wanted to video me running in myself into Bluff as I finished, and I stopped for like half an hour, and I could kick myself now, you know, because even if it were like, if I'd just run a little bit like 20 minutes faster, then I could have done it in 34 days. Like
But
20.
you didn't just break the record. You completely blew it out the water. You know, it
Uh,
unbelievable. You know, almost 20 days faster.
yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, that is pretty incredible. And it's possibly a record that could stand for a long time. Because
Yeah.
one, it's obviously on the other side of the world. It's not just one you can just jump out your doorstep and do, like some of them over here in the UK. Unless obviously a local over there decides to give it a go. But then, you know, it's not a short fastest known time. It's a long process, a long old. So it could stand quite a while. How does that make you feel, knowing that not only did you obviously do this for your family, for the ones you've lost and the ones that you are still with us, but also how does it make you feel that you are the fastest female to run the entire length of New Zealand?
Um, it's even when you say that out loud now, it's sounds a bit weird, I guess. I don't know. It's been quite sobering the last 6 months, you know, with lockdown, and you just get back to sort of normality, don't you? And yeah, you know, I am proud of my legs and my feet for carrying me that distance, but it's not something that I think on every day. Does that make sense? You know,
That's fine. Yeah.
it's just sort of the next challenge now, and I'm just grateful that I had the opportunity to do what I did and to meet the people that I did, and had an amazing time because of it. But yeah, you know, I have no doubt actually that record will probably go, because it's about making people aware as well, isn't it? So I didn't want to talk about it too much. I didn't. Like, oh, I don't want to say it too loud, just in case someone else whips the cup beneath my feet. But yeah, you know, we talked about earlier about how many amazing ultra runners there are out there, and I have no doubt that, you know, someone will go out and take that record, and well deserved too it would be. So, but you know, I've still got my memories, and had an
Oh yeah,
amazing time.
no one will ever take that away. It's set in stone. Even if
Yeah,
it's a former record, it's still a record, and one somebody has to beat. You know, even John Kelly's Pennine Way record stood a week before Damien Hill came and took it. He still broke a 31-year-old record before that happened, and
yeah,
you know it lasted a week. So, but it's set in stone. It'll be
yes,
written down in 2020.
yeah,
You know, Menna Evans, fastest female. You know,
yeah.
so fingers crossed it lasts a little longer than obviously John Kelly's record did. It's lasted a few months already, but that, you know, COVID's helping that, I think. And obviously it's been a while now. It's been a few months, as we know. January you did it, and the dust has truly settled. Looking back on it, would there be anything that you do differently? You mentioned maybe go run for half an hour longer to be sub 30, 35 again. Is there anything in your preparation or your logistics that you might change if you were to do it again?
I don't think so, you know. I think it went to plan, really. In fact, better than I could have imagined. I had an incredible support team. When I say team, I had um, John the driver, who was incredible. He sadly passed away actually a few weeks ago. And my mum, who was an amazing chef when she was there, and my son. So that was it. You know, it was our little bubble, and I wouldn't change that for the world. It worked perfectly because it got me from the top to the bottom, and No, I mean, I could say I could have done it much faster. I could have run the North Island a lot faster, but then I wouldn't have had the holiday that I did, the spare time that I did to spend with my son in New Zealand. It's once in a lifetime opportunity. So, no, I wouldn't change any of it. It was already special.
Good. Do you have any adventures in the future that we should be sort of gearing up to follow you with?
Yes. I've got actually a 100-mile race on Saturday in Sherwood Forest. Nowhere near ready for it, but I needed a big kick. So I thought, what perfect way to do that than to just crack on with that 100 miles.
Is that the Robin Hood 100?
Yeah,
Ronnie Stan? Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And then next year I want to do. I want to have a crack at, between you and me, I haven't said this out loud yet, but I want to run the fastest known time for the Welsh Coastal Path. So that's what I'm aiming for. And then there's also,
You said it now, so
I've said it out loud now, so I've got to do it. And Ultra Race Romania, that's in
yeah.
August. I'm heading out to that. And then I'd like to do, although it won't be an FKT, but I'd like to do a Paddy Buckley round as well. So just want to get back out into the mountains, and get off the road, because I've done enough of that, the last 7-8 months. Well, more than that actually, because training was on the road as well. But yes, back in the hills.
Excellent. Is there any advice for beginner runners that you might want to pass on?
Okay, well, I find obviously with ultra running, it's a lot of time on your feet. So now I'm a dog groomer, so I'm on my feet all day. I'm not necessarily running the whole time, because it's tricky, as I said before, being a single mum. But basically, time on feet, mix up the routine so that you're not just running the same mundane roads or trails over and over and over again, because then you'll just grow to hate it. So I do a lot of cross training. So I'll do circuit training, yoga, trails, hills, speed sessions, just to mix up the week, so that every run is something different and fresh. And one thing that I keep telling myself as well, on these long runs, is that you're in a time and a place that's such a brief moment, that compared to the rest of your life, it's going to be over in an absolute flash. So you have to enjoy the moment, chat to the people if you can talk, and soak up the experience, because that moment's just gone like that, and you'll just look back on the memories with fondness and not really remember too much the pain.
That's probably the answer to my next question, which was, if anyone's looking to do an adventure like the jog or run in New Zealand or across Australia or any other big adventures, is there any advice we give to those guys?
Um, well, yeah, I'd say it was, like I said earlier, it's probably less about, these big challenges when you're running across the country, is less about the running, although you are running a lot. It's more about the challenges that are ahead of you. So you have to bear that in mind. I probably wasn't thinking too much about that when I thought about, first dreamt up the idea to do it. But yeah, just stay focused and determined, and you'll get there. I mean, if I can do it, a little dog groomer who wasn't running 3 years ago, then anybody can, really.
Excellent. So what we're going to do is finish off with 10 quick fire questions. Okay, nice, simple, nothing too strenuous there. All right. So question number 1: which do you prefer, trail or road?
Oh, trail, obviously.
I knew that was going to be the answer, but I'm going to ask it because you run a lot of road. Your favourite bit of kit that you can't go without when you do these things?
Oh gosh, one. I'm only allowed to say one piece. It's got to be the shoes, isn't it? It's got to be my ultras. Yeah, I've got wide ass feet, and they're the only shoes that fit. And I went through the whole of New Zealand without losing any toenails. So yeah, it's got to be the shoes.
Excellent. Your favourite snack on the run?
Oh, chocolate raisins.
Nice. Is there anyone that inspires you?
Do you know, there are so many ultra runners out there. I've got a massive list of people. I think, yeah, all these recent FKTs and things. Yeah, there's not really one specific, but there's tons of people out there that inspire me.
Are you a Marmite lover or no?
Oh no.
Would you do another joggle?
Oh, in a flash. Yes.
Would you go for? Would you attempt a fast time?
I don't know. I've been asked that question. Possibly. It's for me when I did it. It was more about the experience
Yeah.
and the love and soaking up, you know, the scenery and everything like that. I think when you're doing it as fast as you can, there's less of that. It's more about head down and focus. So, yeah, maybe.
What has been your favourite race that you've ever done?
Favorite race? Oh, Nantararian Silver Trail.
Okay, whereabouts is that?
That's close to Aberystwyth. So just over the mountains there. It's the bird feeding place there as well, and lots of mountain bike trails. It's just stunning. It's got woodland, it's got mountains, it's got everything in it. It's a really
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. There's one for you if you haven't done it before. Obviously, you've already mentioned it. What's your go-to shoes at the moment?
Go-to shoes are my ultras. So I've got the Escalantes for the roads, and then the Superior for a light trail shoe.
What running watch do you use?
Garmin Phoenix.
Excellent. And do you run with your son?
I try to. I try to coach him out. I try to. Yeah, he's a really natural runner actually, but you know, it's not something that I want to force him to do. I just want him to enjoy the moment. So when I can, I do get him out, and without realizing it, he's done 3-4 miles, you know. But if I tell him he's got to do it, then. But yeah, we'll see. He's still young, so there's plenty of time.
Excellent. It's been absolutely fantastic catching up with you, Menna.
Oh, thank you.
Thoroughly enjoyed it, and like I said, I followed you from day one of your New Zealand. That's how I got to know, obviously, through the beautifully brutal ambassadors. And thank you for coming on. Absolutely, it's amazing, and I just love chatting to people who have their stories, the reasons why they do what they do, and everyone. Although we have similar stories along the way with various different, everyone's still different, and we all have different adventures. And our feet would probably hate us if they could actually talk. I think a lot of the time, but they will also say what great adventures that we've been on. Yours, I definitely think your feet would have enjoyed every step in the rain, in the wind, the sun, and everything along the way.
They're dancing.
Yeah, it's been absolutely brilliant. So what I'll do is I'll pause this and then we'll just have a little finished chat afterwards. But thank you very much for coming on the show, Menna.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Wow, that was amazing. What a great catch up it was with Menna. She just proves that an average Joe can achieve great things. And I really, really enjoyed catching up with her. If you enjoyed this or any of the other episodes, please like, subscribe, download on all the various podcast apps and YouTube. All right, click that bell, click subscribe, and be notified of when the next one's uploaded. But until next time, on If My Feet Could Talk, I am the Ultra Running Matlow. Laters.